That song, it won't leave me alone. It's always in my head. That song. Hello and welcome to Rotted Review of the Day, and today we are continuing on with our Halloween franchise, this time with the 1982 entry, Halloween 3 Season of the Witch. Rarely has a major franchise entry been quite so jarring to the general public. Because if you don't know, and what the audience didn't know back in 1982 when it was released into theaters, as far as the question of what does this have to do with Michael Myers and that iconic mask? And the answer to that is diddly squat. Has nothing at all to do with it. This was an attempt by John Carpenter and company to deviate away from the Michael Myers character, but continue on the Halloween franchise, this time instead having entries relating to Halloween and how the Halloween season affects folks. And it was a box office bomb, and they retooled. They said, nope, we need to go back to Michael Myers, and they did for the fourth movie. But the third one here is a bit of a legend. It's honestly ragged on way more than it deserves. It's, it's, in my opinion, one of the great schlocky 1980s horror films, right up there with The Stuff. And there's a special place for it in my heart. And I'm going to go ahead and get into that as soon as I get into a little bit more what it's about. So this movie follows the character of Daniel Chalice, who is a doctor. And in his doctorial duties, he comes across a patient that is brought in and is on... he's basically rambling and saying that they're all going to kill us, and he's holding on to a Halloween mask. One of 3 Halloween masks that the movie set up beforehand, being offered by the Silver Shamrock Company as a trick-or-treating novelty item. And there's the skull, there's the pumpkin, and there's the witch. And in this movie and in this universe, apparently things like television characters don't actually exist, because as I recall, this would have been about prime time for kids to be running around wearing E.T. costumes and such. But no, apparently the options for trick-or-treating and for children's masks are down to 3 offered by one company. And Silver Shamrock is the title, is the name of the company, and the commercial that is constantly playing throughout the entirety of the movie, set to the tune of London Bridges. And this movie, I was not looking forward to watching it again. I will say that, just because of this song. I mean, there's a huge part of me that loves watching this. But in all honesty, I knew that if I sat down and watched this movie, that stupid commercial song would be playing constantly throughout, and I would have it stuck in my head for the next 2 weeks. And absolutely, I mean, I fall asleep and I still have it going on in my head. I'm not even going to try and sing it. I'm not going to give it any more power. That song. But regardless of the song, anyway, moving on with the rest of the plot, sure enough, this man that's been saying they're all going to kill us winds up dead at the hands of a very calm businessman who appears to possess superhuman strength, because he kills him in pretty horrific bodily fashion. So this leads Dr. Daniel Chalice to wonder what in the world's going on. Who was this man? Why was he not letting go of this mask? Why was he saying they were going to kill everybody? Why did he wind up dead in such an unreasonable and weird fashion? And in investigating all of this, he comes across the man's daughter and begins the investigation with her. And it winds up leading both of them to the doorstep of the factory of the Silver Shamrock Company and the town that it resides in. So there's a lot about this that I absolutely adore. There is a sense of fun play involved here that is it's schlocky, but in a very self-aware, very not quite humorous wink to the camera level, but just they know they're having fun. They know they're trying to turn out a bit of a farce, and they're basically just kind of going for spectacular kills and an original storyline. And I would say that they wind up having both of those. It's a pretty original storyline, and they have some pretty spectacular kills. But here's the thing about it is, because it wasn't going for that comedic wink to the camera level, and I'm glad it didn't, because I don't think that it would have been quite the same if it had. But unfortunately, the downside of that is you really have to approach this movie with a little bit of your brain turned off. And because it approached it on that level of taking itself somewhat seriously, having that element where you do need to turn part of your brain off doesn't work in service of the movie. For instance, I'm not going to spoil anything, but there are several elements in here that it reminds me of the old Bond things where, the hero is captured and has absolutely no value, none, to the villain. No reason to keep him alive. It would be just so easy to pull out a gun, put a bullet in a brain, and be done. But instead, has to capture him, has to bring him to the center of operation, has to explain everything in monologue, and then has to tie him up and put him in a room unsupervised while the plan is executed. Things like that. You really do have to just enjoy the movie for what it is and turn your brain off. But again, because it's not operating on that silly level where that's almost a fun accepted portion of this, that level of intelligence that you have to dial back just a hair, it does make it for a little bit of an odd watch. So I'm going to go ahead and throw up all the scores here. As always, 4 different categories, each one worth up to 25 points for a total possible score of 100 points. And because of that somewhat brainless mentality, I'm not going to say totally brainless, but somewhat brainless mentality, there's just a million different, not necessarily plot holes, but questionable motivational actions taken by people that really don't serve a whole lot of purpose. And because of that, it definitely affects the plot and the intent score. The intent score is affected a little bit less just because I did enjoy watching this one. It was a lot of fun. It is a solid Halloween entry for me, even if it doesn't have anything to do with Michael Myers. I'm not going to say it's my favorite of the Halloween series. It's definitely one of the most peculiar ones. It's an interesting standout, and I love showing it to folks. But yeah, I'm not going to say it. It wasn't great. It wasn't terrible. And I usually find that most people believe one or the other. In my mind, it was just fun and good. It was a fun and good 1980s romp of an entry. And I think the entirety of the scores really reflect that. I really don't see, aside from the jarring nature of not including Michael Myers, not having anything to do with that, I don't really see the level of hate that it gets, but at the same time, it seems like this resurgence of fandom is kind of rallied around it. And I can understand it, but at the same time, that doesn't mean it deserves all the laurels and awards, possible. It doesn't mean that it was a great movie. It just means that eventually what we need to do is kind of get back to an equilibrium and just kind of see it for what it is, enjoy it for what it is, and just say that this was a pretty okay 1980s silly horror movie. And really, that's how I feel about it. And on that basis, I would recommend it. I did enjoy this one, and I do like to show it to people, like I said, and I would like, to recommend it for anybody watching this video. There's absolutely no reason for me to dissuade anybody from watching this one, aside from the song. So that should about do it for my review of 1982's Halloween 3 Season of the Witch. I really thank you for joining me here today. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. If you like this video, please click like and subscribe. And if you want to support me further, my Patreon and my merchandise storefront links are below. Remember, next time you want to watch a horror movie, first make sure that it's good and rotted.